Why would your Ivy League educated aunt call you, her autistic niece, pompous and pretentious for using big words? Oh, coming in hot and expositional. Nice to see you too. Sorry, I've never been good at small talk. Neither am I. Autistics are famously annoyed by small talk. But I'm not autistic. Right, of course. I'm so sorry. I forgot that. Do you know much about autism? Mostly just what I looked up in the DSM-5. There was a section about autistic pedantic speech. Ugh, I hate that word. Was there anything else about autistic vocabulary? Yes, I took notes. You took notes to speak with an acquaintance about the speech of autistics, a neurotype that you do not share with me. Yeah. Is that weird? Well, I wouldn't call it typical. Oh. But there are some who would find that kind of intellectual rigor quite charming. Oh. So, what did you find? Well, mostly I just wrote down the synonyms used to describe autistic pedantic speech. Ostentatiously learned, pompous, pretentious, showy, affected, irritatingly grand, inappropriately formal. Good. Now, look at all those descriptions. What do they all have in common? They're about someone trying to impress others by pretending to be something that they're not. Excellent. And what is it that autistic ableists believe autistics are pretending to be when they use big words? Smart, I suppose, but your aunt must already know that you're smart. I barely know you, and I can see that you're smart, but you don't seem like you're putting on a show of it. Nearly there. How does our culture prefer you prove that you are, in fact, smart? College, particularly Ivy League schools like the one your aunt went to, I guess. Yes, and what do people who go to Ivy League schools usually have in common? Well, either they're exceptional, like you say your aunt is, or they have money and connections, so power. Yes, there it is. There what is. For a lot of neurotypicals, perhaps most, hierarchy is paramount. It must be observed, displayed, maintained, and you have to constantly be striving to get higher up in the hierarchy without upsetting anybody above you while you do it. Holistics instinctively understand hierarchy. For some of them, it's almost autonomic. Whereas for autistics, we have to manually learn it. Some of us do this very well, and we call them high masking, but it takes an enormous neural toll on us that often leads to burnout. For a lot of women specifically, it tends to hit us in our 30s and 40s when our brain just can't take masking for that long. Now we come to the autistic sense of justice. If you are autistic and also hold an additional marginalized identity, such as being a person of color or a woman, then you will notice that hierarchy is strongly tied, of course, to systems of oppression just by its very nature. Many of us, very early on, decide we're going to burn the whole fucking thing down. But in our most relaxed, authentic, unmasked state, we rarely think about hierarchy at all, which is also when our vocabulary comes out, which is why it's ironic that that's often when neurotypicals seem to think we are trying to climb the social ladder. Okay, but can you clarify more what vocabulary has to do with power? Vocabulary is a status symbol for classist holistics. It is gatekept for the powerful. That doesn't sound true. Words are free. Okay, let's try an illustration. Can you envision a scenario where a doctor, lawyer, scientist, professor, CEO, tycoon, who also happened to be white and male, being reprimanded for using speech that was deemed pretentious or pompous? Let's envision that they're at a place that doesn't really make sense for the inappropriately formal language, like a barbecue. I guess not. Because they are not perceived as pretending to be better than they are just presumed to be better. Even if they were teased, it would probably be very lightly, whereas a Mexican teen writing a fire essay would likely be accused of plagiarism. A wife with an abusive husband might be accused of learning those words from someone else outside of the relationship and being beaten up for it. A black scientist might be formally reprimanded or fired for using vocabulary that is specific to their profession within their own lab. Fuck. Because it's not about the words. See, it's about who's allowed to use them. And those of us who take the words without permission from society, we're especially dangerous because words are free and we live in a capitalist society that charges for all forms of status. Right. And some autistics are born with the ability to both absorb and use vocabulary that we aren't permitted to have. So you have to be punished. Was that what your aunt was doing? Maybe. She might perceive me as reaching for the next rung in the hierarchy without earning the privilege to it by jumping through the hoops that she did through her formal education. But in reality, I'm just talking. That's heavy. And I assume the competence of those around me, and I'm not trying to make anybody else feel smaller or myself seem bigger. I just talk and assume that other people will understand. And then if they don't and they ask a question, then I answer, and it doesn't have any effect on whether or not I perceive that person as smart or valuable in comparison to me, because I don't think like that. You said maybe. Does that mean that there's another possibility to her motives? Maybe something less malicious? Well, there's how marginalized people police their own communities and the tallest poppy syndrome, but I am tallest what? Lunch break is up, but it's been so nice to get to info dump about this. Thank you so much for listening to me. Would you like to meet up next week? Of course. I might need a whole week to process all of this. Awesome. Bye. I'm really starting to think I'm autistic.